Hi everybody, welcome back to On the Road to Safer Senior Driving. I'm Joanie Somes, I'm a retired emergency nurse, and we've been talking about how can we keep our seniors safer on the road. And today we're going to talk about keeping the keys by being safe. So let's talk a little bit about what can you do if you're worried about, is somebody going to take my keys away? How can you prevent that from happening? So before you even get on the road, do you know where you're going? Plan ahead. Know your route. Now, I realize if you're just going to the grocery store or church, it's not a big whoop, but if you're traveling across country, maybe you want to let somebody know what time you should be there so that if you don't show up, someone can check for you. And we've found that frequently this happens with seniors is they just get in their car and off they go and nobody misses them for a long time and they don't go looking for them. The other thing, and I think most of you are really good about it now, is have a way to call for help. Now, I don't want you on your cell phone while you're driving, but have your cell phone available if you need to. But plan ahead, know your route. Are you going to have to go through road construction? Road construction can be overwhelming to the brain, and our road construction folks worry all the time when there's a senior in the vehicle. Can you avoid it? Ask yourself, is it really safe for me to drive right now? Is the weather safe to be out there? Do you really need to go where you're going? Is it light enough so that you can see? Many seniors have learned that it's safer to drive during the daytime and not head out at dusk. Remember, our vision isn't as good as we age, and we're not going to be able to discriminate what's going on. And if it's safer to stay home, maybe it's a good idea. We're going to have a whole session on strengthening our driving muscles, but knowing that if you have strong driving muscles, you can actually put your foot on the gas and get it going. Put your foot on the brake and stop the car. You can manage the steering wheel. Flexibility is the other one. Can you turn your head enough to check that blind spot on either side of your car? And they recommend 20 minutes of exercise per day. And the exercises we're going to talk about are driving muscles when we do that session. Also, strengthen your brain. Do things like Sudoku or crossword or mazes. Mazes is kind of like driving. You know, it's one of those things you can certainly do out there to find out if your brain is strong enough. You don't want to be cognitively impaired. Make sure that your docs, your sight and hearing, is good enough to drive. Avoid distractions. This was one of my favorite cartoons. He was not texting, but he certainly had every other distraction going on, and I decided I had to go with the F distractions. Stay off of your phone. Stay away from the food and the fries. Don't be drinking your fluids. I couldn't figure out the radio until somebody from one of the groups says, well, it's the FM radio. Don't be taking pictures. Don't be freshening up your makeup. They've actually pulled people over doing this, and they end up in crashes because they are not avoiding distractions. Ask yourself, are you in the safest place in your vehicle when you're driving? Is your seat position such that you're close enough to the pedals, but far enough away from the wheel? Can you actually see over the steering wheel? Because you should be able to see over the steering wheel by at least 3 inches. You should be back from the steering wheel about 10 inches. Because if the airbag needs to go off, and as it blows up, if your steering wheel is angled in such a way that the airbag comes up and out, it will actually hit you in the chin and push your head back, and it can cause injuries to your neck. If your airbag is angled so that or your steering wheel is angled so that the airbag comes out at your chest, it will hit you in the chest, not your face, and it'll be a little bit safer for you. Last but not least, you want to make sure that the headrest is in such a position that if your head goes backwards during a crash, it actually cradles your head and your neck rather than your head going back and over the seat. All of these things are designed to make us safer and prevent injuries, but if we don't have them positioned exactly correctly, that may not happen. The other thing you may want to consider is, where do you have your hands? Many of us my age learned to drive at 10 and 3. What we've learned is when the airbag goes off, it actually causes your hands to go out like this and can break your thumbs and burn your wrists. So the new current recommendation is actually to have your hands at 8 and 4, so you have less injuries to your arms and your hands. Make sure you adjust your mirrors to avoid the blind spots. You want to make sure your rear view mirror sees the entire back mirror. You actually want to have your driver's side mirror. If you were to, say I'm sitting in my car right now, I lean over just a little bit so I'm right next to the window. All I want to see is the back corner of my car in my driver's side mirror. And what that does is it gives you a bigger area of looking at what's happening. This just is a picture of how those blind spots can be decreased if you just simply adjust your mirrors a little bit more. And you can go online and actually find how to do that. So just one of those things to think about. Next, you want to wear your seatbelt correctly. A lot of seniors don't wear their seatbelts. They put it under their arm. Wrong, 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 wrong. Basically, it doesn't protect you if you do that. It needs to be across your collarbone. It needs to be low on your hip. If that seatbelt doesn't come across your collarbone but's hitting you in the neck, there's a little clip. You can adjust it in order for it to come down lower. So make sure you have your seatbelt adjusted appropriately. One of the common reasons I hear people say they don't wear their seatbelt is because they're afraid it's going to wreck their pacemaker. Pacemakers are tough. Unless you just had the pacemaker put in and you have a fresh incision, wear your seatbelt over your pacemaker. It's perfectly okay. It will survive. And St. Peter doesn't give you a pass when you're in the crash if you didn't have your seatbelt on because you're saying, I had a pacemaker. Just saying, wear your seatbelt, wear it correctly. And last but not least, remember, if you are taking medication that can affect your driving ability because it makes you drowsy or have slower responses, or if you've been drinking alcohol, you probably shouldn't be driving. It's better to have someone else drive for you. Some other things, just make sure your vehicle's in tip-top shape. This one's probably not great, but if you've got a car that's not going to get you there safely, you're not going to get there safely. Attend some of those road safety accident prevention classes. Now, sometimes I get into trouble because all I list is the national courses. There's a lot of these courses across the state of Minnesota. Ask your insurance person because a lot of folks get 10% off of their insurance if they take this safety class. But know that these classes help you be a safer driver, and they can get you some money back. I mentioned car fit courses. Some of the things that I just described to make sure you fit in your vehicle with the steering wheel and the seats, they actually have a program that's free. You can go to carfit.org and have someone make sure you fit in your vehicle. They will measure to see what's all going on. And you can laugh at me, there I am in my yellow vest at one of the CarFit programs. One of the best things you can go to, doesn't cost you anything, and we're not out there to take away your keys. We're out there to make sure you fit in your vehicle as well as you can. So check one out and see if you can get into one. So the 7 things you should do before you drive. Plan ahead. Ask, is it safe for me to drive now? Exercise your driving muscles. Limit your distractions. Make sure your seatbelt, your seat, your mirrors are all correctly adjusted. Wear your safety belt. Make sure that you haven't been drinking or using medications that can affect your driving. And I like to add one last one. This was not on the original, but it's the one I think we should start thinking about is make a plan on how you retire from driving. Figure out, how am I going to get my groceries? How am I going to get to the doctor? How am I going to get to the vet? How am I going to get to church if you can't go online? Who can I ask for rides? You don't have to give up right away, but you can start figuring it out. We all plan to retire from our jobs. Let's figure out how we can retire from our driving. So join us next time when we talk about how to recognize when someone should stop driving and how you can help them to stop drive.